Welcome back into Call It a Night. I'm JSB, and I'm so thrilled to be joined by my former colleague, one of my friends, and a very well-known broadcaster, play-by-play, sideline, Fox Sports. But you've done so much. You've literally covered everything, Chris Myers. I was looking at your bio. I mean, it goes from the Triple Crown to college hoops to NBA Finals to the Super Bowl. How have you been able to cover so many different events?
Wow, it's a good question. I've been around a while, so that's firstly you got to hang around a while. But I think if you have basic reporter instincts when you start out and broadcast instincts, or you are able to deliver a story in a minute or 30 seconds, then you can apply it to anything once you've studied it or been there and on the scene. And I think I was a fan of Julie, but more like people first. I was interested in them than I was sports, and then I became a sports fan, and that was more the fun side of people. So it's like, what's the best way to do that? There's radio, there's TV, social media, there's a number of avenues. So you can go from one event to another, and you have your favorites, the ones you're more comfortable in. But I think in general, if you like what you're doing, you apply yourself, and you find the people in that sport interesting, or that situation. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, you're winning, you're losing. Then I think it's a lot of fun. I would probably get bored over time just doing one thing over and over, but I admire people in the broadcast business who are so good at one thing that they're comfortable in that, and they don't want to branch out. They don't feel that they can't give their best at that. That's another way of going about it. But our business provides so many different challenges, and has as time has grown on. So it's been fun. It's never boring.
Yeah, because you're even doing the Westminster Dog Show coming up. Like you have gotten to do. It really is everything you've done so far.
Well, that's something like that live in Madison Square Garden, New York. You watch it as a kid. I grew up. My family always had a dog. I still have dogs. My family helps with rescue animals. We weren't quite in the dog show business, and I had to learn about that. And we all know the comedic movie there. But it was an interest of mine, and then when the opportunity came up, I said, well, this looks interesting. You had to study. There's over 300 breeds, and golden retrievers never won. There's all these interesting things, but it's a different challenge. It's a break from the football, baseball, some of the other things, NASCAR, the other things that I've covered.
Well, your career is something that like 10-year-old kids would say, hey, I want to cover this, I want to cover this, I want to cover this. And it's just so difficult to actually have that come to fruition, opportunity-wise, just, availability, different things like that. What is on your broadcast bucket list that you still haven't done yet?
Well, doing this show was a major breakthrough because it was
pretty big.
It's one of the things I haven't done yet. So, no, we got to work together. You always had a kind of an easygoing personality. You enjoyed what we were doing. So that comes through, and I think once you have that, then you can do a number of other things. Some of the things you talk about on a bucket list, when I got into radio, there wasn't 24-hour sports television at the time, and then eventually ESPN came along, and now you have NFL networks that are totally devoted to one sport, tennis, golf, whatever. So who knows what's on the horizon, and the way social media and the digital world is very challenging. One of my favorite things I've done through the years was the up-close one-on-one interview back in time, which was back at a time when athletes didn't have their own voice through social media, and I really enjoyed that because you have to sit down and you could, I guess people would reveal who they really are, and it wasn't 60 minutes, but it was along the lines of the old Barbara Walters interview, that type of thing, and people were comfortable, and you got to know them. So what you thought of them before as an athlete, you learned a little bit more, even if you heard them 2 or 3 times. That's how I got to know people like Charles Barkley and Bill Murray, and become friends with these people, because after you do a show like that, there's a connection through something. And so I don't know. I would say that there isn't anything that's immediately on the horizon with a bucket list, but I would say whatever comes, there's always new challenges.
Yeah, you're saying yes and a lot of the time, like we do in improv. And you mentioned to me just before you came on that you did stand up when you were younger. Like, tell me about your comedic chops in front of the mic. And what most people would not do. It's very terrifying.
Right. Well, and especially in today's world, I feel for comics, and I grew up a fan of comedy, listening to comedy records and that tape, who's the hot comic, watching A Night at the Improv, those types of things. So out of college, and I started, I was in some school plays, but then I did the announcements over the PA system and would work in a few one-liners, and if it got a big laugh, that's how it starts. And then in front of the relatives, you do impressions or you repeat, things from the night before that were topical, that got laughs from adults. So it was a way, I think, of really kind of giving me a little bit of a jump, that when I got on the radio or got in an interview situation, situation, I was able to entertain people if there was a slow point. So it's a lot of work, as you know, and it's very daring to get. And I enjoyed it. The rush was so good, but I just was. I don't know if I'm cut out to do this for a living.
It is a slog,
yes,
right?
yes.
It's a lot. But you mentioned the one-liners, the catchphrases, which we're going to get to in a second, because I know
Okay.
you weave those into your broadcasts all the time. You're going to be sidelined for the Super Bowl. You've done this many times before, and one of my favorite clips was, and I texted you about this, watching you interview Tom Brady after the comeback against Atlanta.
Falcons,
and it is, I remember watching it live at the time, where it's insane. There's just, if you haven't seen it, Google it. Everyone's just swarming trying to get into Tom, and Chris is tasked with interviewing him. What was that like?
Well, it's the live broadcast of the game, and the producer is, you want to get to him as quickly as you can because it was such a dramatic comeback, and it's Tom Brady. But the problem is, usually as the broadcast network, you have a little quicker access to the interview afterwards, even when players swarm the field. But in this case, because people thought the game was going to end and the Patriots, we didn't know it was going to go to overtime, they let all of the media on the field, including international media. And you know how the NFL, it's everything, every night's the Super Bowl, right? So they were all there. So when that ended, I had a security guard who was supposed to help me, like a league representative and a field producer for this, and the cameraman to meet us at the point, which was Brady was the star once they won it and overtime. And once that happened, they were like, all right, go get him. So I started to go out there, but the swarm was 3 times what the normal, and the security guard got trampled, the producer got lost to the shelf. There was nobody, so it was like a bad, it was
almost.
It was,
you have to, right?
Yes, you have to get there, and other camera operators are trying to get there, but they have the battery packs. There's heavy equipment. There's security guards bumping into people. If you see them, it was like I was crowd surfing almost, except I was getting bounced around in between. But eventually you get to him, and then Brady's exhausted, and he's trying to catch his breath, and I don't think he really wanted to. At the moment, he's like, "Can I?" And I was like, "Well, you're the only guy."
Like, no.
They had to take the They had to take the high camera, and I even said, "Tom, we're," and I just said, "Let's go." And I said, "We're live on Fox, Tom." So if he didn't want to do it, he was going to have to blow off all of America or whoever else was watching around the world. And Brady's cool, even in that moment. And it was the year of the Deflategate and the redemption, and his mom had battled the cancer, which he overcame that, which was so there were so many great stories for him, and even for a guy who's won before, it was a very touching. So eventually, he just was as good as he always is in an interview, and it helped that we'd met with him during the week. But just getting to him was the job, and then the questions were, you have time for 1, 2, 3, and then you're throwing it back.
And people don't realize, you got to get to that guy. It doesn't matter what you do, you get to him. You can't, if you don't, then that's it.
That's it.
And so you're on the sideline for the Super Bowl this year, and when this airs, we'll know that you are on your Chiefs. Okay, so how do you does that get decided?
So, Aaron Andrews and I work in the playoffs together. During the year, I do the play-by-play for Fox with Daryl Johnston, so I'm up in the booth. But my roots from radio into TV were reporting on the field. So because Aaron works with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on a regular basis, she gets first call. And usually it's really a collaborative effort, but it's relationships with which team and that type of situation. Are you comfortable? And I've covered the 49ers, so has she, quite a bit. So we bounced around. She had the Packers against Seattle, and I had the 49ers against the Packers. So in this case, that's how
it just kind of worked out that way.
And in the past, I think the year of that Super Bowl, I had she had the Falcons, I had the Patriots, obviously. And there have been a few. This is actually, I think, my 6th Fox broadcast Super Bowl. Time
That's
flies.
Incredible. So for a lot of people, just before we move on to a fun little game we're going to play, I just have a question. I did sideline. Not for the Super Bowl, but for MLS soccer and NHL hockey.
Yes, I watch it. You're good. You know how tough it is. You got to be live and quick and fit it in.
What's one thing we as viewers don't understand what it's like on the sideline of a Super Bowl?
Well, I would say it's one of the most difficult things in broadcasting because just for that reason, all the information you gather, you may only use 10% of it, and the percentage you use, it has to come at the right time, right? And it has to fit. You might have 40 seconds of things you need to say, but you got to do it in 25 because somebody's scoring or there's a timeout or a commercial or they're snapping the football or whatever sport you're in. And sometimes you're standing by, it's topical, but they want to get to you, but something's happening on the field, which takes priority. The game is always the thing, and we're there to enhance it and give the information. Then you have to be accurate. And, you're focused, but the noise out on the field, you talk about distractions, there's so much going on. It's just you really have to have that, as you know, tunnel vision and focus and deliver it. And sometimes there are conditions. I've been in -20 weather in Green Bay where your lips masks are practically freezing.
Yeah, hard to do your reports.
Yeah, gloves on that you can't write a note about an injury to make sure you get the right medical term. So it's a quick memory, it's a quick delivery, but there's a great excitement. It's not about being on TV or being on the air. It's about being part of a team that covers something. It gives people information that they might see, but enhance it a little bit more. At least that's how I view it.
Man, I would be so nervous if I knew like I was in front of 150 million people. Just like don't mess up. Yep. So hopefully I didn't get in your head there.
Well, no, you know what? Quick story. My first Super Bowl, it was the Patriots-Eagles, Jacksonville, Florida. And I was interviewing Troy Brown. He was a versatile player for the Patriots. I'll be quick on this, but just to share this.
Yeah.
And I'd been broadcast. It's no big deal. This is my first Super Bowl as the network of the broadcast. And so Troy Brown, I said, hey, they're going to come to me. I'm going to ask you 2 quick questions. This is pre-kick after the anthem. I said, don't be nervous at all. There's like 100 million people watching. I don't want you to think about it. And so he's like, all right, I'm good, Chris. I'm good. So they kind of go after the Chris, let's go down to Chris. I'm thinking, 100 million people. And I'm freezing. And he taps he's like, Chris, you got a question for, kind of like let's go. And I'm like, oh yes, of course. And then I stumbled through it. So I let it. After that, it was like never before. I'm always thinking, just like when you're up on the stage, I'm talking to one person out there. So if you think about it, it gets in your head.
If you think about it, yeah. I mean, it gets in my head thinking about you having to do it. So
yes.
Luckily, that's why I'm not on it. That's why I'm sitting here with you, and we are taping this. So we would love to have some more stories, but we just want to get to a fun little game.
All right.
We mentioned that you are big into catchphrases and kind of just having like interesting lingo to describe things. I know even recently just the family jewels about Jadeveon Clowney's injury.
Okay, that was another quick turnaround, and
that's the improv brain, right?
What am I going to say there? Because I could have said below the belt wasn't good enough. This guy was in pain. It's tears.
Yeah, we all know what family jewels
right. It was
entails.
a clear.
Okay, so I want to do this with you because it's our game is called Call It a Catchphrase, and there's a lot of other broadcasters. I've got different catchphrases that they've used.
Yes.
And I want to see if, I want to see what you know, about what other people said, okay?
Catchphrases, okay.
All right. First off, dagger. Who said that before?
Ooh. Is that on Monday night? No?
I mean, it might have been on a Monday night.
Monday Night Football? No? Okay.
Okay, that's Bill Raftery.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next one.
Okay.
Not so fast, my friend.
That's Lee Corso.
Yes.
Right?
Bing.
Okay. Didn't Raftery also do a said that in Jerome kind of thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's,
I mean, I looked these up on the old Google machine.
Yes,
so.
he's got a lot of them. Okay, he's good.
He could go all the way.
The legendary Chris Berman.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
And let's get ready to rumble.
That's Buffer, right? Yes. Is it Michael Buffer?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think he has a brother who does it now.
He does. We
Yes.
also found that out, too, through our research.
All right.
And quickly, what's your favorite phrase to use?
Ooh, well, I kid because I care is one, and,
Yes.
and that deserves a wow. I mean, those are the two things that describe things that kind of came naturally. You don't sit there and say this will be a catchphrase. You say something and that people like it. You go, all right, I'm going to use that again.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what works on here.
So good. I think I hit 4 out of 5, right? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you got that was great. I mean,
I passed.
You beat me, so I would never
test.
do that.
Okay.
Thanks so much for hanging out.
Thanks. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great.
Keep up the good work.
Hey everyone, JSB here. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Fubo Sports on YouTube, or else I guess you could watch puppy videos. That sounds good.